So I'm going to be talking about the Saarthans, who are the snake-like creatures who are very tall and fast and silent in their movement. Um, and before our journey to Virayan, there used to be many of them, a lot of different tribes. And the territory of Windrian used to be populated with a lot of different forests, but those forests have long since been torn down because of the construction of the massive castle, which also leads to the destruction of some of those mountains too. But anyways, the tribes, they were mainly small tribes, but the Saarthans were the largest tribe who populated the dense southern forest, which also was the largest one. And most of the tribes consisted only about 100 to 300 individuals, and it was mainly a warring species. The Saarthans are usually neutral. They don't really attack unless they have to, such as retaliating against an attack. But they're mainly known for being the most intellectual of the tribes, and they try to keep things in an open mind, and that happened because they just kept tabs on each of the other tribes that were near them, so that their tribe doesn't get attacked. And when they do fight, they always use tactics and not full on or head on attacks like most of the tribes would, and try to use numbers to take their enemy down. In our world, it's known as guerrilla warfare, so that's what they do. And they also try to use their tongue before fighting. So they try to speak and talk to the different tribes because I know they want to preserve who they are. Some of these tribes did assimilate into the Saarthan, but most of them disappeared because of the fighting. Eventually, it left the Saarthans alone, but they were able to keep their tribe up and going throughout all the years because of the dense forest. They they're a really good defensive position. So regardless of how big and or small the enemy may be, they'll use fear or the guerrilla tactics to take them down. And their culture is got some notes here. I have a lot of notes here. I liked talking about these guys. I had momentum going on, so I didn't want to stop when I started writing this stuff. So they're natives. Their traits are they're known as they're I guess you could say they're a warrior tribe. They're built on strength, cunning, and adaptation, and they would do whatever they could to keep their forest safe because it's their haven. It's what actually kept them alive, regardless of the armies that passed through that tried to take the forest and thus their home. And that's what drove them to, or motivated them to maintain the forest that they live in. So basically, in a comparative, if you compare it to like religion or something, yeah, that's kind of what they worshipped in a way. But I don't want to say worship. It's a little difficult to explain, but it's what's embedded into their culture and who they are and why they live there. But anyways, some of these Sarthans were called hunters. They're the warriors of the tribe who also are the hunter gatherers, and they're open-minded people because of their scouting efforts during the tribal wars. They tried to keep tabs on them. And during this time, they would maybe see, a fighting style that some of the scouts liked and brought back to the tribe to either implement it in their fighting style or learn how to counter against it. And after the tribal wars ended, they led to them scouting more than just the immediate area around the forest. They went far and beyond. And I don't have a name for it yet, but it's called I'm just going to call it a pilgrimage, just for the sake of knowing what their journeys were. So they'd go to different places and bring that culture back, and it's what made them become more open-minded about different things. And the reason why they would even go to such lengths in the first place is the motivation, like I said, that drive to protect the forest and to help prevent any attacks from happening in the first place by either talking to the other lands, which they developed uh, the language for, and how they became so diverse, and also to bring back information or supplies, new skills, uh, lots of different things to perpetuate the growth of their tribe. And it was at the point when we went there, when we built up, they learned, some of them actually did come up to us, and or to my area. I also want to put in a story where we first arrived to Windrian as a whole, me, you, and Marzin, with the citizens, and we would greet them there. But I'm not that far yet. But anyways, I think they would learn how to be better at archery with the techniques that I set upon my archers. Alright, and at some point there was a conflict of interest because an individual doing a pilgrimage discovered elemental magic, learned the basic types, and brought it back to the tribe. At first it was okay, and it was definitely interesting, but he hadn't shown, or didn't have 100% control of the power, and eventually led a small part of the village to catch fire. And outraged, some of the tribesmen wanted the guy exiled or executed. And because of this, he decided to resist and killed uh, some of his captors before being swarmed and captured. His tongue was cut so as to not utter a magic spell, and was ultimately sent to exile. And I think that being sentenced to exile is more of a harsh punishment than death, because they cherish their home so much that they're willing to die to protect it, and more. And not being able to come back to their home, which they would have died to protect, is probably more of a punishment than death. And I want to say that eventually they find some sort of ritual that seals in magic, because their first exposure to it is someone who didn't have any control about it, and then they set forth the pilgrimage to try to find something to seal it in, some sort of different kind of magic to help control this if that ever happens again. And I think that would be perfect for uh, when Scythe eventually comes by and they sense that his magic isn't 100% controlled. And that's when they do the ritual to seal in his magic inside within his musculature. And that's who Scythe is now today. I'm gonna. I haven't put in a story for it yet, but I think that's a good start to, or a good tie for how Scythe becomes who he is now. Well, that is episode number 1. I'm going to work more on the stories, the culture, and the history on the Saarthan. So let me know what you think. Um, if there's anything else that you'd like to put in, I hope to see your feedback.